is cruel and unconservative. And she's also saying that Liz Truss is going in a direction where she has no electoral mandate and she's jettisoning a lot of the Boris Johnson platform and abandoning the centre ground, allowing Keir Starmer to occupy it. But I really do think that the Tories need to be also thinking about inequality. Now, Liz Truss's argument would be, in response to that, well, I'm trying to help everyone. I've reduced the basic rate of income tax from 20 to 19 pence. By supply-side reforms, we'll increase growth and encouraging people to get jobs is the most secure way of ensuring prosperity. But I still think that if in a capitalist system, if you've got a situation where those at the top are accruing more and more of the benefits in society and others feel completely left behind, you're in a situation where, to quote Tracy Chapman with her old song, talking about a revolution, you're going to see people rise up and fight back against the system. And I think that's where, for me, the compassionate conservative element that was being talked about for 7 years has been lost. And these people are fighting the battles from Thatcher's time 40 years ago. We're in a different environment now. You can see this in the strike action that's taking place, that people aren't roundly condemning strike action. Look, I think strike action's deeply unhelpful. I think there are other ways of doing this. I don't believe in inflationary pay rises, but it's very difficult to argue against that when you're giving pensioners an inflationary pay rise. And you're saying to people at the bottom of the spectrum on benefits that we're not going to do the same for you.
She's more M people than Tracy Chapman.
Not according to M people.
In moving on.
Well, not according to...
M people are livid.
Yeah, they are. But we had all that with Trump, didn't we? A lot of people objected to this music that he would use, and, that's life. But on the point of the U-turn, the mood music that I'm reading with Liz Truss is certainly that, she's trying to claim she hasn't decided yet. I think she has decided. I don't think she is going to push ahead with a real terms cut on benefits because she just knows that's going to be the final nail in the coffin for her.
Well, that's right. And I think the Cabinet, some members of the Cabinet, you heard Penny Mordaunt already coming out in a Fringe meeting talking about it. The Cabinet's not really been singing with one voice on this. But it's not only benefits that Liz Truss is going to have problems with her own party on. You've got Suella Braverman talking about reducing immigration to the tens of thousands. And the Times has got a piece here saying Braverman at PM at odds over Indian migrants. Now, on the one hand, Kwasi Kwarteng, the Chancellor, and Liz Truss want to open the door to immigration, not only for fruit pickers, but also for highly skilled professionals to come over and boost the economy. They realise that, I think, in their heart of hearts, that on the back of Brexit, that has had an effect on growth. And on the other side, you've got people, a lot of voters who voted for the Conservatives in 2019, particularly in the Red Wall, who wanted higher wages and lower immigration. It wasn't just about controlling immigration. It was very clearly about reducing the numbers of people coming into the country. And that's very much this is what Braverman's talking about, the Home Secretary. She's in that camp. Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng in the other camp. So these things have to be done. And then you've got planning reforms with increased wind farms. Well, how's that going to go down in Tory heartlands where they're very worried about erecting wind farms on green spaces?
So migration is going to be a tricky issue for Liz Truss. Also, Amy, though, it is a tricky issue for Labour. Labour have the same dilemma there as well, because they don't want to be seen to be soft on immigration, but equally, businesses do need a more fluid labour force.
To be honest, Labour this week have come out with some statements on migration that I really don't think are helpful at all.
Like what?
I mean, so they also basically said they don't think we're deporting enough people. Now, one, I think electorally that's stupid, because if what you do is reinforce the fact there is a problem with this, then obviously the Tories are always going to outmanoeuvre them on that. So I think it's stupid strategically for Labour to try and go hard on migration. I also just think it does not match the mood of the country. Now, that is not what you necessarily would see reflected in papers like The Express or The Mail. But actually, post-Brexit, people's concerns about migration have absolutely nosedived. So I think it used to be something like 40% of people thought that immigration was bad for the country. That's way down to around 20% now. Most people think migration is either neutral or broadly positive. Because there was such a hype built around it being problematic, and then people were told it was addressed, actually, people have largely kind of moved on from that. So I am not impressed by Labour on this. I think we need to start talking much more positively about the role of migration and then stop pitting migrants against workers, because in reality, the people that are being exploited are all of us, right? We're being exploited by bosses. That's who drives down wages. And the people that fight against that are people like unions, who, again, we've been absolutely castigating. But they bring together British workers, migrant workers, to call for better for everyone. So I think the migration stuff has been unhelpful from Labour. I mean, it's even worse, obviously, from Suella Braverman. But we need to start having a much more informed conversation about migration, which actually reflects the mood of the country.
But Amy, just on that point, I understand the point. And look, businesses are suffering out there. They can't get access to labour. You can see that in restaurants. You can see it in the 100,000 vacancies we've got in the NHS. But fundamentally, one of the issues around Brexit and the reason why people voted for it, and something that Boris Johnson talked about when he was PM, is a high-wage, high-skilled economy. That requires investment, and it requires businesses across the board not to get hooked on the cheap labour, the opium of cheap labour that they've had for so long. Now, I know that in the medium-term period, you have to be sensible. You have to gradually try and bring it down over time whilst not crippling business. But in the longer term, you need to reskill your population.
Absolutely.
You need to have lifelong learning, and you need to increase wages as well to try and attract people into some of those jobs. You need a balance here.
No, I totally agree with that. I think the point I'm making is that we use migrants as a scapegoat for far wider, systemic problems around the fact we don't invest in our workforce, around the fact there's very poor adult education, there's a lack of housing, our NHS has been stripped out. And for far too long, the right and the Conservative Party, and I think often at points the Labour Party as well, have used migrants as a scapegoat, as a distractionary tactic to take attention away from the real issues. Big political risk
to challenge the rhetoric. It is a political risk, isn't it, to challenge that way of thinking.
The way of thinking around migration.
Yeah. If that's what you're saying, that the Conservative Party, Labour, that people, if that's the thinking on migration, challenging that is a big risk.
But if Labour can't challenge that narrative now, when they have a sort of 39-point lead, then when will they? This is a time, I think, for bold statements around what kind of country we want to live in. And I just think that we're arguing for the same things, Ali. I think proper workers' rights, proper investment in our people, and also treating migrants with respect and dignity and working with them to fill gaps.
All I'll say, Amy, on that one, to round off this point, is to say, look, Labour needs to reconnect with voters in the red wall that left them, right? And they know that, on one hand, this is why Labour has been pretty stum about the whole Brexit thing and not opening up that whole wound again.